All right, let's get into a story that, well, it's one of those that really sticks with you. It's about a man who, on the surface, had it all. He was good looking, smart, a real charmer. But underneath that smile, he was hiding a secret so monstrous, it's hard to even comprehend. This is the story of the double life of Ted Bundy. Just listen to these words from the judge who sent him to the electric chair. A tragic waste, a bright young talent. It's just wild, right? It perfectly captures the whole puzzle of Ted Bundy, the incredible potential and the absolute evil, all wrapped up in one person. So how on earth did it come to this? The story really ends right here. Picture this, January 24th, 1989. Outside a prison in Florida, there are hundreds of people, and they're celebrating. They're lighting fireworks, they're cheering, because the news just broke. Ted Bundy is dead. You could feel the relief. To understand why, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning. So who was this guy really? I mean, behind all the sensational headlines, there's this really disturbing origin story, one that's built on a foundation of lies and rejection, things that might just have planted the seeds for the monster he would become. Okay, just look at this timeline. It's like a perfect storm of psychological trauma. He was born into what was then considered shame, and he grows up believing his own mother is his sister. Then wham, a soul-crushing rejection from his first real love. And then, the final blow, he finds his own birth certificate and confirms the lie he'd been living. His entire identity was just built on sand. And this really shows you the result of all that. Bundy basically built two completely separate lives. By day, he was the guy you'd want your daughter to bring home, a sharp law student, a volunteer at a crisis hotline, and get this, he was literally talking people out of suicide, and by all accounts, a loving, charming boyfriend. But at night, he was something else entirely, a cold, calculating, remorseless hunter. So let's get into how this predator actually operated, because his methods weren't just brutal, they were chillingly clever. They were methodical, manipulative, and they preyed on the one thing we all hope people have: basic human kindness. This was his go-to move, his playbook. He'd put a cast on his arm or wear a sling, making himself look injured, vulnerable, harmless. Then he'd approach young women, asking for a little help. Could you help me carry these books to my car? His car, of course, was that infamous Volkswagen Beetle. He literally weaponized empathy. The second they got close to that car to help, the trap was sprung. And back in 1974, this method led to a terrifying string of disappearances all across Washington state. Young women, smart college students with their entire lives ahead of them, just vanished, one after another. And these are just some of their names. I mean, his arrogance, his brazenness, it peaked at a crowded state park. On one single day, in front of tons of people, witnesses saw him arm in a sling, introducing himself as Ted, and he lured two different women away, Janice Ott and Denise Nasland. Neither of them was ever seen alive again. This was huge, because for the first time, police had a name, and they had a clear MO. And this right here, this is the question that just haunts everyone to this day. How? He wasn't some ghoul hiding in the shadows. He was the friendly, handsome guy next door. So how is that even possible? Well, the answer might lie right here. Clinically speaking, Bundy was a textbook psychopath. He couldn't feel empathy. He had zero remorse. To him, other people weren't really people. They were just objects for his use. This definition helps us kind of start to understand the profound, terrifying emptiness that was hiding behind that charming mask. Now, even with all his cunning, the net eventually started to close in around him. But his capture, that was really just the beginning of another terrifying chapter, one that was marked by these unbelievable escapes and a final, horrifying rampage. So here's the turning point. His whole reign of terror started to fall apart because of one woman's incredible courage. Her name was Carol Duranch. He lured her into his car, but she fought like hell, and she got away. She became the first survivor to point him out in a police lineup, and that just shattered his whole facade of innocence. But Bundy was far from done. While he was waiting for his trial in Colorado, he escaped. Not once, but twice. The first time, he literally just jumped out of a second-story window at the courthouse library during a recess. I mean, the audacity is just, it's off the chart. After his second, more carefully planned escape from jail, he headed for Florida. And down there, a cornered, enraged Ted Bundy unleashed a level of savagery. nobody had seen from him before. He broke into the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University and just went on this bloody, frenzied attack.
But this time, he was getting sloppy. An eyewitness actually saw him fleeing the sorority house. He left a brutal, deep bite mark on one of the victims, Lisa Levy, that would later be matched to his teeth. And then, shortly after, he committed his most awful crime, the abduction and murder of a 12-year-old girl.
12. Just let that sink in. 12 years old. The murder of Kimberly Leach proved to the world that there was no bottom. There were no depths to which Ted Bundy would not sink. He wasn't just targeting young women anymore. He was now a predator of children. So, with his final capture in Florida, the game was finally over. The trial that came next would become a national media circus, and the entire world would finally get to see the real man behind that smiling mask. The legal fallout was swift, and it was final. He was already doing time for the kidnapping in Utah. But in Florida, for the Chi Omega attacks and for the murder of little Kimberly Leach, the verdict was guilty, and the sentence was death. Twice over. Now, what's really fascinating is that this was one of the first major trials to be televised nationally. And Bundy, a true narcissist, absolutely loved it. He fired his lawyers so he could represent himself, basically turning the courtroom into his own personal stage. He was smiling and charming the cameras, all while the evidence of his monstrous acts just piled up against him. This chart just gives you a sense of the sheer scope of his terror. He moved from state to state, exploiting the fact that police departments didn't really talk to each other back then. He left this horrifying trail of death all the way from the Pacific Northwest, down through Utah, and all the way to Florida. In the final days before his execution, he finally started talking. He confessed to more than 30 murders. But here's the chilling part. Almost no one in law enforcement believes that's the real number. The true total is likely much, much higher. Some investigators think it could be over 100. The truth is, we'll probably never know the full extent of it. So, what's the takeaway from this whole dark saga? Well, his legacy is a complicated one. Studying Bundy's mind actually helped the FBI refine its behavioral profiling techniques. He became this cultural symbol, the charismatic monster, and he serves as this terrifying cautionary tale that evil doesn't always wear a scary mask. Sometimes it has the face of the guy right next door. And that really leaves us with this one final, unsettling question to think about. Bundy's story forces us to face a really uncomfortable truth about the nature of evil. It's a reminder that sometimes the most ordinary, friendly, smiling face can be hiding the absolute deepest darkness imaginable.